Welcome everybody to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela Andrew. Hope you guys are all having a happy Friday. Today we're going to be talking about how to curate your photo library and the art of photo curation. So what that means is going through your library, finding those best images, marking them, and making sure that they are accessible to you and at your fingertips when you need them. That way, when you want to create an album, when you want to make prints, all these different things that you might want to do with your pictures, you can get to the best stuff quickly. Before we dive in today, I do want to share with you a little bit about what we have coming up for you this next week. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. Everything looks good. I changed the way I'm doing this a little bit, so bear with me if something goes a little bit wonky. Next week we have our live Q&As as always every Tuesday and Thursday. Those are at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday we have these coffee breaks, which are short tutorials followed up with time for more questions. And next week, next Friday, we're going to be talking about how to triage your photo library, what to do when everything feels disorganized. I'm sure a lot of you can relate with that because we come to a product like Mylio because we're trying to get organized, and you get in there and you're going, okay, I got the program, I put my pictures in there, what do I do next? That's what next week is all about. So wherever you are in your organization project, that probably can help and will give you some ideas and pointers on how to deal with that overwhelm. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into this week's presentation, which is how to curate and find your best shots in your library. What we're going to cover today is why curation is important, how it improves storytelling and focus. We'll go over some of the different tools in Mylio Photos that can help you efficiently sort, like QuickReview, ratings, flags. We'll even touch a little bit on declutter. And we'll go over some practical tips for faster photo selection. So we're going to talk a little bit about some keyboard shortcuts. If you're on a mobile device, some of the gestures you can use, and where to go from there. You can organize them into albums, you can create slideshows, you can send them to Printique for printing, and so much more. It's really up to you where you go from there. So let's go ahead and talk about first why curation matters. The reason we want to curate is because too many pictures feels like clutter. It's overwhelming. We get in there and we're going, okay, I see a whole bunch of stuff that's really similar, but what's the best one? Which one do I want to focus on? Which one do I want to share? And that's why curation is important. It helps you tell better stories. You can share with impact. It gets you ready to print if that's something that is a goal for you, and ultimately just helps you enjoy your photos more. Now, this is something that needs to become a creative and practical habit, something that you're going to have to do regularly, because we can get all of our past stuff organized, but our society is creating more photos than ever. People are snapping photos every day with their cell phones. Those are probably coming into your Mylio Photos library, so you're creating more content, more images every single day. So curating them needs to become part of your routine, something you schedule for yourself. I would say weekly or monthly, just depends on your schedule and how much time you want to devote to it. If you do it every week, it won't take very long. If you wait a month or every 3 months, it's a much bigger project. So it's really up to you, but just fit it into your schedule somewhere regularly. And if you need to, set a reminder. Our phones, in addition to taking awesome pictures, also have a lot of really good organizational tools in there. So I use my reminders app on my phone to set those types of reminders, and they just pop up every so often and remind me to take those things that I want to build as habits. So that's just a little practical tip there for you. So when you're getting started with curation, the first thing to think about is your goal. What do you want to do with your library? Are you wanting to get this ready to hand down to the next generation? Are you just wanting to make it enjoyable for yourself to browse and find your best pictures? Are you trying to create a photo book or prints for a gallery wall in your home or something else? There's a lot of different reasons why people come to a program like Mylio Photos to organize their library. The next thing to think about is, who are you planning to share this with, if anybody? Who's going to want to look at this? If it's the next generation, are they going to want to see 15 nearly identical photos? Or are they going to want to see your one best? If we think back to the film days, people would go to the store, they'd buy their roll of film of 36 frames at the most, and go take those pictures. That roll of film probably, unless they're on vacation or something, probably lasted them a few weeks or a few months. And you got 1 or 2 slides of each particular image, event, whatever it was. You're not going to sit there with a cost of film and rapid fire off 20 shots of nearly the same thing. That's what digital did for us, is it gave us this ability to capture all of these images and so much more information. And I love the ability to capture burst, but it does give us a lot of images to deal with. And whoever you're handing this off to doesn't want to see all 20 versions. They want to see the one best one. So think about who you're wanting to share your library with. If it's the next generation, if you're a photographer and you're wanting to put this in your portfolio. One of the things I struggle with in my own photography portfolio is I go back to a lot of locations many times, and I might have different images from different times of the year and different things of the same subject. Does my audience really want to see 15 different interpretations of the same thing, or do they want to see the one best? So be selective. Make sure that your images that you decide to curate and mark as your best, that they have emotion, they've got good composition, they tell a story, and they in some way matter to you. Trust your eye, trust your gut as you go through this process. It is very subjective, and how I would curate your library is probably not how you would curate your library. So keep that in mind, that your eye, your emotion is what really needs to guide this process. All right, so to start off, the tool that I think is the most helpful in Mylio Photos for curation is QuickReview. Now, a lot of you might not use this or know about it. Up until recently, it was a little bit hidden. You had to go up into the More menu, the three dots in the upper right, to go ahead and invoke this view. Now we have up-leveled it. It's over in that left sidebar under the tools, and you can quickly launch QuickReview from any different view inside of Mylio Photos. So if you want to quick review your entire library, I don't necessarily recommend that because that's a bit overwhelming. You can do that. If you go into a person's collection in People View, invoke QuickReview from there, you can look at just their pictures or a specific folder or whatever grouping you're looking at. QuickReview will launch from that particular location. That just clears away all the other clutter on the screen and lets you focus on rating. You're not looking to delete things here necessarily, but you can mark things with flags. So you can do a pick flag, which is kind of like marking something as your favorite. You can do a reject flag. So for me, rejects are something that I probably intend to delete. It's going to be when I accidentally took a picture of the floor, or it's blurry but beyond being able to save, or there's just not really anything redeemable about it. I don't mark many things as rejects, but there are certain things that are just really not worth keeping. So I mark things with reject as things that I'm planning to delete. And then you have your star ratings. I typically, in my process, will star rate things later, but if you prefer to add stars at this point, you certainly can do so with the 1 through 5 stars. For myself, the way I use stars is I very rarely use the 1 and 2, because if something's a 1 or a 2 star, it's probably not worth my time to rate anyway. 3, 4, and 5 is where I spend most of my time. 3 stars are going to be things that I want to keep, that I like. They may have a great memory. They might not be technically great. They might not be compositionally perfect, but they mean something to me. They're a memory, or maybe I can use it as a composite with something else. There's something redeemable about it that makes me go, yes, this is worth hanging on to for sure. My 4 stars are going to be things that, like, wow, this is actually pretty good. I want to share this on my blog. I might share this on social media. I really like this picture, but it might not be one of my absolute best. Then we have our 5 stars. And this is where I put things that I've won awards on, and my things that I'm the most proud of, my images that I think are the absolute cream of the crop. Those are going to be the ones that I mark with a 5 star. So using QuickReview is great for things like burst mode, events, trip folders, and so forth. So let's go ahead and jump into Mylio Photos. And I've got a folder up here from a recent trip to the farmer's market. And I want to go ahead and use QuickReview to go through this. So just kind of at a glance, it's a small folder. I wanted to keep it manageable for demo's sake. But you can see there's a few images in here that are relatively similar. And QuickReview is going to let me slide through these and decide which ones I want to keep. So let's go over here to the left sidebar. Click on that. And there's our QuickReview. So much easier to find than it used to be. So we go ahead and launch that. And that puts us into this beautiful focused mode where we can just take care of looking at these pictures and making our decisions. Now, navigating in QuickReview, there's a couple of different ways to do this. If you are on a mobile device, and I love this best, I think, on a tablet. It works on a phone too, but a tablet's nice because you have a little bit bigger screen, but you still have those touch gestures. This works like I don't know. I've never used Tinder, but I've heard it's like you swipe to the right if you like something, you swipe to the left if you dislike something. And in Mylio, it's the same thing. You swipe to the right to mark it as a pick, swipe to the left to mark it as a reject. And then you can swipe up and down to add your star ratings. So you can use those touch gestures when you're on a mobile device or touchscreen device. It also works on touchscreen computers. So if you have a Windows computer with a touchscreen, you can do that as well. Now, if you're on a computer, I like doing it on a computer as well because you have the bigger screen, but you don't have the touch gestures. So that's where keyboard shortcuts come in really handy. You can use the P key for a pick flag. So I can go ahead and hit P to mark this as a pick. I'm going to make sure I've got my thing here selected. And it jumps right to the next image. You can see my little pick flag popped up there. And it just moves on. You can also, if you want to mark something as a reject, hit the X key. So I have two images here that are very similar. And I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to go back and forth between them and decide which one I like. I think I like actually the gesture on this one a little bit better. So I'm going to go back to this first one and mark that with an X. Now this one, I like it, but I don't know that I'm going to do anything with it. So I'm actually just going to leave it unmarked and click my arrow key to go to the next image. And again, I've got two images here that are very similar. I like this one, I think, a little bit better because it's heads up a little bit more. These young musicians were at the farmer's market playing beautiful classical music. Perfect backdrop to shopping for flowers and veggies and other things. But this image here, you know what? Actually, looking back and forth, I think I like the light on his face better in this one. So I'm actually going to mark this one as a pick. And this one I'm going to go ahead and mark as a reject. You can also see when I mark something as a reject, it gets a little reject flag on it. It doesn't do anything to it, doesn't delete it, it just marks it so you can deal with it later. Again, looking at these two images here, very similar. I think I like that one a little bit better, so I'm gonna just go ahead and mark that as a pick. And I don't really wanna reject this one, so again, I'm gonna just leave it alone, hit my arrow key. Now, with our star ratings, you can use, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your keyboard to mark these. I'm gonna go ahead, this is really pretty, I love the colors, but it is a little bit blurry. I missed the focus. I'm in focus right up here, but right here in the middle of the shot, it's actually blurry. But I love the colors, so I'm gonna go ahead and give that a 3. And again, you can see that it put the little 3-star on there and moved me to the next image. This one, kind of the same. I'm gonna give it a 3-star. This one, 3-star. Now these ones I absolutely love. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just kind of flip through these because these are all very similar. And I think I like that one the best. So I'm actually gonna give that a 4-star. And this one's pretty cool. These succulents were really unique. I can give those a 3-star, another 3-star. This one, honestly, I missed the focus. I think the focus is right here when it really probably should have been here. I'm gonna mark that as a reject. This one's kind of cool. We can do that as a 3-star. And then these two I absolutely love. I think I like this one a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark that as a 4-star. And now I've gone through that library. When you're finished, you can either click the X that's right here or hit the escape key on your keyboard. It takes you back to your folder. And then you're seeing here all of those ratings that you just made. And if you want, you have the ability to hide your rejected photos. So when you reject something, if you just don't want to see it in your library, but you don't want to delete it, go up here to the More menu and turn off Show Rejected Photos. So that just hides them. And now those are not cluttering up my view, and I've made this a little bit more pleasant to look at. So that's an overview of QuickReview and what that can do for your library. Later on, when you want to find these best shots, all you have to do is open up your filters, go in here by rating, label, and flag, and let's say I want to see everything that's a 4 and 5-star. All I have to do is click those. Or I want to see everything that's a pick. I can go ahead and filter to everything I marked as a pick. So those are just some great ways to be able to find what you've curated, and this makes things a lot easier to find later. All right, so rates and flags, we talked a little bit about this already. So I use stars to rate the overall quality. I typically do this later on in my process, and flags are my first line of defense. So when I'm first going through a new batch of images, I use flags to mark the things that are my favorites. And that typically means something I want to give attention to later. Again, rejects are stuff that I'm most likely going to want to delete because it's blurry, because it doesn't tell a story, it doesn't evoke an emotion. There's really nothing redeemable about it, so I'm going to want to get rid of that. Or maybe it's one of like 15 of the same shot that I shot off a burst, and I know that this one over here is really sharp and the rest of these, those can go. So I can mark those as rejects as well. The next thing I do is with the star ratings. Typically I do this after I've gone through and done my editing, but again, a 1 star should probably be rejected. I don't take the time to add those very often. 2 stars, probably worth keeping, but not artistically great. Again, I don't really bother marking those because I'm not going to do anything with them. You certainly can. It's a personal preference. 3, 4, and 5 is where I really find the value. 3 is that great memory shot. Maybe I'll post it on social media, share it with friends or family. 4 stars, definitely worth sharing. Might even put it on my website. And then those 5 stars are going to be the best of the best. So those are some ways that you can use ratings and flags with intention in your library to find and mark those best images. Now, the next line of things that you can do with Mylio Photos is photo declutter. And this helps you compare and choose the best when you have those burst mode photos. So you can do some of this from within QuickReview. Like you saw that I use the arrow keys to go back and forth. The thing I like about declutter is that it actually will group together those burst mode photos so you can see all of those similar ones all at once and then pick the same one. This helps you eliminate near duplicates and so you keep the most expressive, sharpest version. You can also use quick filters in here along with the auto mark tool to help you find and eliminate blurry photos, eyes closed, and things like that. So that's using some of that AI object recognition and leveraging that in your ability to cull and curate your library. So let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to a different album here, or a different folder rather. And let's go here into this one. Now I've already done some editing and other stuff in here, but I want to show you the power of declutter because that's going to group together the burst mode photos. And you can see as you flip through here, there's a lot of areas where the images are very similar. And that's because I was holding down that shutter button on my camera and getting several images back to back because when you're photographing something like animals or kids or something like that, they're constantly moving. And you want to make sure you're getting that best gesture, that best expression, and that best composition. And that can move and change very, very quickly. And burst mode is great for capturing that, but you also end up with a library full of very similar pictures. And so declutter is great for helping clean these up. So again, I'm going to go over here to the tools and we're going to choose photo declutter. Because I was already in that folder, it's limiting it here to just that folder. And you can see it started to group these things together. Now, a couple of things to know when you're using photo declutter. It uses the time frame that's time-stamped on your image and groups things based on the time. So the default setting here is within 2 seconds. I'm actually going to bring this up to about 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That's usually where that kind of sits for me. You can even bring it up a little bit higher if you think you might hold down that burst for much longer than that. I think that's closer to typical. So you just adjust this and that changes how things are grouped here. So from here, what I can do is I can manually go through and compare these. So taking a look here at this black swan and these different images, I can decide which one is worth keeping and which one is worth not keeping. And if I want to go ahead and hit the back arrow, go back to the grid, I can go down and take a look at other groupings. You can see that one already edited. And you can see that I just kind of sat there and held down the shutter. And this lets me kind of compare those very, very similar images. And if there's ones that I want to get rid of, I know is not a very good one. So let's say that one, no, that's actually pretty cool. Maybe that one's not as great. Let's go ahead and mark that one to delete. It'll jump me to the next one and I can go through and mark what is important there. Now I can also use the auto mark option here. What this does is it leverages that AI object recognition and finds things that are blurry. You can find things that are eyes closed, underexposed, overexposed. There's even one here for not smiling if you're photographing people. In here, you can also adjust the AI sensitivity. So you can find things you want to make sure. For me, I'm going to go ahead and keep that at the default and apply. Eyes closed. I'm not sure how well that's going to detect on animals, to be honest, but we can go ahead and leave that open. Underexposed, overexposed, and then we go ahead and say run auto mark. And that's going to go through those images and find anything that fits that particular category and mark those so you can delete them. Now, luckily I was using a lens that was pretty sharp and my exposure wasn't terrible this day, so it didn't mark much. But again, you don't want it to mark things willy-nilly. You want it to be very particular. So I would then go through these images and see, okay, which ones do I want to keep? None of those honestly are very good, so I could mark all of those to delete. And that's gonna go ahead and let me move on to the next group. It says I've marked everything in that set. Yeah, that's fine because none of those were very good. And then I can go down here and I can say delete marked, and that's going to physically delete them from my library and all of my vaults. So this particular action does delete things. So if you wanted to say take these images here and mark them as rejects, I believe you can go up here to photo and you can go ahead and under organize, actually, thought you could do it here. Maybe I'm not. Okay, so I think you can grab them. Maybe you can hit the X key and that'll mark them as rejects. But mostly when you come into declutter, you're wanting to physically delete them. So go down here, you can delete marked, or you can move them out of your library, and that cleans things up and helps your library look more curated. All right, so moving on to the before and after here. I'm looking here at a sample folder that I worked with earlier, and the folder started out with 147 images. After I did my curation, I added some pick flags, I added some reject flags, I deleted a few things. I was then able to filter my image for the 4 and 5 stars, and then I brought it up to those 3 best images. When you're sharing this with your friends and family, do you think they want to see the 147 images or they want to see the 3? Which has more clarity, story, and emotional impact? I'm pretty sure this one here is what most of us would pick. Now there's a handful of us that wants to see the 147, but yeah, in most cases, I just want to see those 3 best. And so that is the power of curation. That is why we go through this process, is because when we want to share these images, when we want to find these images, it's about having those best at your fingertips when you need them. All right, so your next steps, what you're gonna do and take away from this particular episode is I want you to choose a recent shoot or event that you photographed. First, you're gonna launch QuickReview, and you're gonna go through and you're gonna flag picks, rejects, and if you like, you're gonna do some star ratings. Then I want you to go into declutter, and if you have any burst mode images in there, find the ones that are worth keeping and get rid of the ones that are close but not quite there. Clean up your library a little bit. And again, do this by a single shoot. Don't feel like you need to do this to your entire library all at once. That's way too overwhelming. Pick a specific shoot, and this could be 10 photos, this could be 200 photos. That's up to you. Once you've done that, what I like you to do is take those ones, go into your quick filters, and find the ones that are the 4 and 5 star. Find the ones that have your picks and put those into an album in the albums view. And then from there, you can make a slideshow. You can share them in the community. But go ahead and go through that process. And I think you'll be really amazed at how much more enjoyable looking through those few images are rather than looking through everything. It doesn't mean you have to go through and delete a bunch of stuff, but marking them with flags and stars can really make your library a lot more enjoyable to look through and better for sharing and getting that story out there with the people that you love. I do want to remind you that we have live Q&A next week, Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully you guys can jump in to any of those. Those are for anybody who's using Mylio Photos, whether you are brand new or you've been with us for a very long time. You can drop in, ask questions. It's very informal, and it's just geared to whatever you guys want to talk about. There's no set topic. So please feel free to join me for any of those sessions. And then next week, we are going to be talking about how to triage your library. So when everything seems overwhelming and a mess, make sure you come to that session. We will talk about how to deal with that. So with that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Have a great rest of your Friday, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.